I'm Mike Severns, and this is the Hungry Realtor Podcast. And welcome back to another episode of the Hungry Realtor Podcast. This is me, Mike Severns, the Hungry Realtor. I'm here with Brian Murphy today. Brian is a graduate of Rutgers University and got his MBA from University of Phoenix. He has been in the insurance industry, he has been in the real estate industry, and he started a new venture at the virtual assistant industry. So I really want to get into a deep dive. Brian, thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hey,
Excited to be on here.
I appreciate that. Let's start out by why don't you tell me a little bit about your background in the insurance industry and how that experience has translated into a real estate career and then this next venture as well.
Sure. So, all right. So I actually, kind of right out of college, started in the insurance industry. Started working in claims. So kind of, built my way up the ladder in the claims field in insurance through a couple different companies. And then what happened probably, 2010, 2011, a whole lot of businesses started becoming centralized. They started going more online. So insurance companies all over the country started shutting down local claims offices.
Oh, wow.
So I actually was impacted twice with two different office closures. And then once that happened, after the second one closed, I said, screw this, I'm going to work for myself. And I started my own insurance agency. So I started my own agency from scratch. And it was at the exact same time that Mary, my wife, was getting into real estate. So that was like 2015. And, I started having a lot of success with building that agency, and absolutely loved it. And after a couple of years, I built it to a point where, it was large enough for another big independent broker to offer to buy my book of business.
Oh, wow.
So at that time, Mary and I were both self-employed. We had kids who were, I think, like 4 and 2 at the time. So, how it is to be self-employed. I mean, it's a roller coaster. So, when all of a sudden someone comes to say, hey, we'll buy your book for 3 times your annual commission, you're kind of like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, one of my contacts from an insurance company I worked with previously when I was in claims, they actually approached me with a management position at one of their local offices. So Mary and I talked. We're like, all right, you're killing it in real estate. You sold 37 homes your first year. Like, you're doing awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you keep doing that. I could get this payout for selling my agency, and then I'll go back into the claims world where we'll have that steady salary. We'll have the benefits.
Yeah.
So, that's the direction I went. So I sold my agency, went back into the corporate world of insurance, and then quickly realized just how much I hated working for someone else again.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that. Like, I was in the deli business before, and I worked for myself, owned my own delis, was my own realtor. And then, I had a couple jobs, like in between there. And it just seems like no matter what, I always wanted to gravitate towards working for myself for a couple different reasons. One, you mentioned, is the insecurity of it all, right? Like, you were with two different offices doing claims, and they just shut down, and it wasn't your
Yeah.
fault. It wasn't any decision you made. It's just the
Mhm.
way that somebody up above had, hey, we got to close this down. Sorry,
Yep.
everybody who works there. We'll lay you off and you get unemployment, but there's nothing we can do. This is the decision that's made. So I can definitely understand why working for yourself is attractive. So now,
It's
uh,
attractive and scary as hell at the same time, though.
yeah, you're absolutely right, right? Because it's all on you.
Yep.
So tell me about, now you're back in that corporate world. How long did it take before you were like I need to shift back to?
It it wasn't. It was maybe, I don't even know if it was a full year and a half.
Wow.
I mean, it was like a year and a couple of months. So what happened? So at this point, when Mary got into real estate, she started on some teams.
Hmm.
So she was on a couple different teams, and then eventually she went to break off to start her own team, because now at this point she was, really successful. the last team she was on wasn't the right fit. She was an expansion director for a team, and the visions were just not aligned. So that's what ultimately she decided to go off on her own, and she started building it. And it was, I don't want to say it was a hot mess, but I mean, because at this point she was selling 70 homes on her own, and she was going through assistants, going through agents, trying to build a team, and it just wasn't working. And that's where eventually, I'll never forget, great story, we were sitting on a beach in Jamaica, and she was like, how you kind of, you were able to organize your insurance business, and grow that and actually scale it and sell it. And then you were able, and then she said, like, personally, like, like with us, she's like, this vacation, I just say I want to go on vacation and you just take care of it. She's like, why don't you come and help me do that in my real estate business? And I was like, okay. I was like, because I couldn't stand working in insurance in the corporate world anymore. So I literally went in that following Monday, and I forgot, I think I had to be in, I think I started at like 8:30 in the morning, whatever it might have been. And it was literally like 10 minutes in, she's texting me. She's like, did you tell them yet? I'm like, they're still asking about my vacation. Like, let me kind of ease into it. So by lunchtime, I had told them to put my 2 weeks in.
That's funny. So for some background for the listeners out there, Mary and I actually were on the same team when she first started her real estate journey, coming from being a teacher.
It was Moss Dare
Yeah, Moss
originally
there. That's
with
right.
Dan Moss and Cheryl Dare. Yep.
And I was there, and then we would be together in the office, kind of talking about the grand futures that we were going to have. And I could tell then that Mary was driven, but unfocused. She was all over the place, didn't really have a clear path. And I think
Yep.
she saw that and recognized that you could do that for her and with her. And it's why you guys are such a great match in business and in their personal lives, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. And so this is why, and I know one of the questions we're going to get to, I'm just going to jump ahead now that we kind of went here, but one of the books that was instrumental in both of our careers with us working together was Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman. And for those who haven't read it, that book is kind of all about the relationship of the visionary and the integrator.
Okay.
Two essential roles in a business. So Mary is your quintessential visionary. If there is a definition and a picture in a book, a textbook, it's her. It's someone who has all these big ideas, but just doesn't know how to actually get them all implemented. So she always says she could get steps 1 and 2. So she'll know what that big vision is, but then she doesn't really know steps like 3 through 9.
Mm.
And then step 10, implementing, she knows that, but it's those middle steps of where she didn't know how to build it. And that's more my personality, is more the integrator role, someone who is really good at using the systems, the processes, and actually structuring a business to actually get it to be able to scale. So that's one book. Like right when I left my career and started working with Mary, she was like, all right, you got to read this, because it really just talks about because that role between the visionary and integrator, you're two totally different personalities. So they tend to kind of butt heads a lot, because the visionary wants everything. And the integrator is the one that has to kind of rein them back in and say, hey, no. Like, slow down. Like, this is what we got to do. And when you're married, it's even worse.
Yeah, because now
so that book was essential in the beginning, with us figuring out how to actually, bring that role into our business. Because now we know, we're like, all right, we're going to be together 24 hours a day. So we need to really figure out how we're going to do this together.
So there's two things I want to touch on there. The first one is you said that Mary was doing about 70 transactions a year when you first joined the
Mm-hmm.
group. Tell me about how you impacted the group and what the whole group is doing now. How many transactions are you guys doing?
So when I first joined, I left my corporate insurance job in August of 2019. So I kind of slowed my way in. We were kind of figuring out what exactly the role was. So I started first looking at her business. And the first thing I noticed, at this point, she had Jen, who was still with our team. So Jen started as a buyer's agent with Mary, but Mary was going through assistance. And Jen was like, hey, I would love that role. I have a daughter, I'm a single mom. I would like having that salary. So we moved Jen over to that admin role. And, she's been absolutely incredible. So she's still with us. She's our team manager now. But, so when that happens, the first thing I noticed, I'm like, all right, well, Mary, like, you are pretty much all listings. So I'm like, what's happening with all the buyers? She's like, oh, I don't know. So I'm like, all right, well, you're losing a boatload of money. So I actually got my real estate license in January of 2020. So
Perfect
actually
timing.
that first almost year, I actually started working buyers simply because I saw how much money she was losing by not working buyers. So as the integrator, like, that whole trade is like, I'm just going to fill in where needed. I'm going to solve some gaps here. So that first year, the biggest gap was we're losing a ton of money by not working, by just giving these buyers away. So that's where I first got in. So while I started doing it, I immediately started diving into her CRM system,
Mm-hmm.
because especially coming from the insurance background, insurance is so much more like nurture and relationship driven, because you want to get that person's renewal every 6 months, every year.
Right.
Like you want to make sure, so you need those relationships. So the first big hole I noticed in her business was her CRM system. Like it was just a hot mess.
Mm.
So that's where I started. And once we started kind of getting that together, then we were able to start actually building a team. So by, you know, the second half of 2020 is when we started adding a couple agents on the team. So 2020, we did kind of the same, we were somewhere in like the 16, 17 million, really just as a 3-person team. It was
Mm-hmm.
me, Mary, and Jen. But then we started really kind of building it. And that's when I started implementing virtual assistants into our business and really add more leverage, because then I started seeing other gaps in our business, such as marketing, social media. We had zero presence. Like, I would tell Mary all the time, like, you're selling 70 homes a year. And according to social media, this agent over here selling 2 homes a year looks like they're way busier than you.
Mm-hmm.
So so we realized we needed someone in that role, but we weren't in a position to hire someone full time in office to run that for us. So that's when I found the use of virtual assistants. So we added our first VA was a social media manager, and immediately started making a huge impact in our business on that side. And it took a lot of pressure off Mary and Jen, because they were always trying to figure out the marketing stuff. So then all of a sudden in 2021, we went from 17 million to 40 million
Nice.
in a year. And then last year, even with the horrible second half of that year when interest rates started skyrocketing, we still increased our business by 25% and went up to 50 million last year. And we did all that with only one in-house staff member. So Jen is still our
Wow.
only in-house staff. So we did the exact number is 142 transactions last year for 50 million. And that was one in-house. Everything else was leveraged to our systems, our processes, and VAs.
So let's
So
talk
that's
about the.
where I
Oh,
immediately
sorry.
started making that impact.
Let's talk about the VA for a little bit. How do you see that changing the landscape of real estate, and how did you leverage them, and how would other realtors really create opportunities because of the VAs?
I mean, I think it's already changing the landscape of it, because it's starting to get extremely prevalent, especially after COVID hit. Because when COVID hit and shut a lot of offices down, everyone was working remote anyway.
Mm,
And now you have, now you're starting to see these other, kind of online cloud-based brokerages come
right.
up where you don't need that brick and mortar. So you have more people, again, working remotely, working from home. So then it started getting, and this is where we started, because it was during that time of COVID where, I started to discover the VAs. So it was in 2020. So I've been using VAs in our business for about 3 years. But with the VAs, you get people at a fraction of the cost that are highly skilled.
Mm,
So we're able to leverage off so much. I mean, we have VAs that run transactions, bookkeeping, database management, ISA stuff, executive assistants, marketing. I mean, pretty much all of it
wow.
is outsourced to virtual assistants.
So it's not just basic data entry anymore. Because I
Mhm.
remember back in 2015, 2016, before the pandemic, like people were using VAs to just put like stuff in a spreadsheet for them.
Yeah,
Transfer this CRM to my new CRM for me, like busy work that they didn't want to
yeah.
do. And it was like $2 an hour, $4 an hour, whatever
Mhm.
for that basic stuff. But you're saying now it's highly skilled where you're
Yep.
trusting them to run a marketing department, your bookkeeping, which I find very surprising.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, let me tell you. So on that, I just want to dive in. This is one of the areas that pretty much any business owner, especially in real estate, could use. because there's so many agents out there that have no idea what their actual numbers look like.
Yeah.
Like, it is amazing how many have no clue. Like, I will talk to people and I'm looking at their business and I'm like, you realize you're actually writing checks. Like, this business isn't making you money. Like, people have no idea. So for me, I have a master's degree in accounting, but I hate it. That's why I never worked in the accounting field. Like, I started, so I got into doing some of that accounting when I first got my MBA, and literally dreaded it. I'm like, I don't want this, and so that's one of the first things I wanted to get off my plate. So as we started leveraging more and more off the VAs, one of the first things I wanted to get off my plate was the bookkeeping.
Okay.
And I am telling you, it was probably the single biggest impact to our business, because we know literally any single day I could give you to the penny what our expenses are, what our income is, what our profit and loss is. Like, I can tell you literally down to the exact penny, because every cent that comes in or goes out ends up on a spreadsheet by one of my VAs. And she just provides a spreadsheet. So all we got to do, like, we have graphs, all kinds of stuff. So like every Friday, she sends us a graph and a spreadsheet of the upcoming week's profit and loss. So we know what expenses are coming up, what income's coming in that week. And then every Monday, she sends the exact ones from the year to date, because obviously things change, especially real estate. Closings get pushed back, other expenses come up. So on Monday, we get a report every morning with the exact, profit and
Great.
loss once all the expenses and the income has hit the account. So we literally up to the minute, and all we got to do is open a spreadsheet and look at it.
Wow, that's
And
great.
then my accountant loves it now, because now everything is super organized. So now all I got to do is print out our reports at the end of the year, give it to my accountant, and say, there you go. And it's done.
Nice. So you're finding immense value here. Tell me about the time when the light bulb went off and you said to yourself, I love these virtual assistants. I think everybody should
Mm-hmm.
have this service. How did it go from I'm using this service to now beginning to offer this service to other people?
So, yeah, and I'll never forget it. It was actually like, it was the middle of the night one night. Like, I kind of woke up in the middle of the night, like a lot of business owners, and your brain's always moving.
Mhm.
And I got up and I just literally, like, I don't know what it was. And it just went off. I'm like, I'm good at this, like, because I know how impactful the VAs were on my business. And obviously, a lot of that came down to how I hired them, how I trained them. And like, I could really help a lot of other business owners. But one of the biggest factors, and so our company strictly hires from the Philippines. So there's, you can get VAs all over the world, but we solely use the Philippines for a couple of reasons. One, English is one of their primary languages. So it eliminates a lot of those kind of communication breakdowns. But two, just the overall culture of the Filipino people. They are extremely family oriented. They're faith based. Like, they're just incredible people. So that's where, when I first came up with Leverage Virtual with our company, it was twofold. It was, one, I could help other businesses scale the way we did and maintain profitability, because you're not hiring 5 in-house employees. You could hire 5 VAs for the price of 1 in-house employee.
Wow.
And they're gonna have more skill. But the other side of it was, I started getting a real passion for the Filipino culture. So I was like, all right, I could have an opportunity here to provide as many jobs as possible
Mm.
for these Filipino VAs, to really kind of be able to get a little part of the American dream by working for a US based company while doing it remotely from their own home.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where the idea came from. And I realized when we started really leveraging VAs and really using them at a high level, I'm the director of operations for the Murphy Group, our real estate team. So most of my job is on my computer,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a lot of mine is doing that financial stuff. It's managing our systems. It's, creating all of our processes. I leveraged 90% of that off the VAs. So I started getting to a point where I'm like, I come into our office and like, what do I do? Like, I didn't know what my role. I'm like, I leveraged my entire job off to other people. So I'm like, shit. I'm like, I don't know where to go. And that's where then I realized, like, all right, well, now I really have the time and the freedom to go and start building this new business.
Now, and I want to just make sure, like these virtual assistants, they can work in any industry, right? Like they're not just real
Oh, yeah.
estate based. If somebody has, they're a plumber, and
Yep.
they're trying, they're working all day, and at the end of the day, they're trying to do paperwork and
Well, you
accounting
know
and
what's amazing?
marketing.
So, and this is where it comes. So, I mean, I've placed VAs in a number of different industries. Obviously, real estate because of my network, my connections there. That's a large base of our clients. But then I've placed them in the mortgage industry, title, insurance, financial, um, like financial analysts, those kinds of people. But then I've also recently just placed a VA for a sporting goods store here in
Nice,
locally. So they're gonna help manage their stuff. And then for contractors. But the beautiful thing, a lot of people, especially in kind of those specialized things, whether you're a roofer, a plumber, a contractor, electrician, you are out on the road all the time.
right?
So while you're out on the road doing your jobs, because again, a lot of these smaller business owners, they're doing the work themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few that are big enough and have expanded to where the owner kind of just manages. A lot of these, the owner's still hands-on. So if you're in there and you're, knee deep in, fixing someone's plumbing and you have someone reaching out, obviously you're not getting back to them right away.
Right.
So that's where the VAs come in.
Nice.
Because now the VAs can not only manage a lot of your paperwork, they can be the ones sending out invoices, making sure invoices are getting paid, but they could also be that leverage for that person. So if someone reaches out, and is what Mary will do all the time, and me, where if I'm on an appointment and I can't get back to someone right away, we have a VA that responds.
Nice.
So it's either they can answer the question for them, or if it's something that I need to be specifically involved in, they'll at least send the email out to our client. So our
Right.
client's not waiting around for hours to get a response. So they'll at least get a response from my VA saying, hey, this is Brian's assistant. He's in the middle of another appointment right now. I just want to let you know, that we have received your inquiry. Brian's going to get back in touch with you. He should be done his appointment at this time and he'll call you. So that way, at least that client's now getting touch base with, especially in the real estate industry, for one, where, buyers don't want to wait for people,
No,
especially in this market.
yeah, exactly.
And that's where it helps. And that's where you can leverage a lot, where if you're out on appointments and all of a sudden another buyer reaches out and they see a house that they like and you can't get back to them for a few hours because you're out showing someone else, 3 or 4 houses, that person's going to go right on realtor.com. They're going to go on Zillow and they're going to find another agent and they're going to go see that house. But now if you have someone working on your behalf as your right hand, they could now reach out to that person, help schedule that appointment, be like, all right, yes. So, I see Michael's available at 3:30. Are you okay at 3:30 to go schedule that, to go see that house? And if they are, great. That VA could schedule the showing. They can do all that for you. And then that VA will just send you a message and put it in your calendar and say, hey, Mike, by the way, you got to be at 123 Main Street at 3:30.
Awesome. Yeah, I like it. So I work for a company, Redfin, who also has tour coordination teams, and that's kind of how they work. They're in hubs all across the country, and we have our calendars, and if our calendar's open, somebody goes to the website, puts in that they want to see it home, and all of a sudden now I have an appointment on my calendar. I didn't even, I get the email
No,
notification and
well,
it's perfect.
and that's the optimal kind of thing. That's where every business owner wants to get, because
Right.
no business owner can do everything on their own. You're going to miss stuff's going to fall through the cracks. You're going to lose potential business. So when everyone is kind of able to work in their own strength zone, that's when you're really able to scale. And that's how we've used VAs and how we've helped other businesses with VAs, is kind of be able to keep the agents, keep the business owner in their strength zones, and have other people manage everything else.
Nice. Tell me about some challenges that you faced when you were starting this company. Obviously, there has to be, time zone difference, right? Like when you're trying to hire people, like are they
Yep.
getting up in the middle of the night? Are you getting up in the middle of
Yep.
the
So
night?
so
Like, tell
most
me about that.
so the VAs will work on, your own whatever hours you want to set. So for example, my team, all of my VAs work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
So for them right now, that's 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So they
Okay.
work overnight. So now most of them are used to working those hours because a lot of them, one of the primary jobs in the Philippines as virtual assistants. So
Okay.
they're used to working that overnight shift, but they'll work whatever your hours. So our hours here in our office just happen to be 9 to 6. So I just keep on that schedule. But if you have different hours, if you were 8 to 5 or you're 10 to 7, they'll work whatever schedule you have, because the way we work with our VAs, when we recruit and we vet them, we screen them, we train them, then we place them with you, they become your independent contractor. They are not controlled by us. We
Okay.
don't pay them. You're going to pay them. So they're your independent contractor. So you can kind of control things like what their hours are. And again, what their rate of pay is, what if you want to give raises, bonuses, that's all controlled by you as the employer. Where some VA companies who control the VA, they subcontract them out.
Right.
They kind of control that. They say, well, no, this person's only available to work these hours.
Okay. Great. And then, so tell me more about the service and how you find a good fit. Like,
Mhm.
do like personality analysis between
Yep.
like the business owner and the VA, like so you can find a good match. Like, what if the business owner says, I don't have a good fit here. Like,
Yep. So,
does
so
that ever
this is
happen?
where, and this going back to what one of your, the last question is some of the challenges. One of the biggest challenges we're starting up, because there's other VA companies that have been established
Right.
that are big companies, have reputations. We're coming as a new guy. So we had to really figure out how to differentiate ourselves and how to provide value that other companies aren't. So first thing we did, myself and my VA team, was just started researching every other company out there
Oh, that's a good
and
idea.
seeing what they do. And one of the ways that we kind of separate ourselves is our vetting process. I mean, our vetting process is absolutely ridiculous.
Mhm.
It's probably the most stringent vetting process of any of the companies out there. So, let's say, if you came to me, you were interested in getting like an executive assistant,
Mhm.
we would obviously start. Now we have a huge database of people already, like VAs that have already applied for
Oh
positions. So
wow.
obviously the first thing we do is go through our database to see what matches we may have there. But then we obviously open up new job roles in all the Filipino, job boards, and we get applicants just flooding in. So I have a team, and this is where they're just amazing. So I have a team of recruiters who they will start going through all the initial applications. They're going to go through the resumes. They're going to start weaning people out who don't have the experience we want. So we would ask you what kind of systems are you using,
Mhm.
what's their most common tasks are we working. So then we could really start matching based on that stuff. And then as we start to find the candidates that are going to be a fit, we make all them go through a DISC profile assessment. So again, the DISC, I don't put total stock. I won't eliminate someone solely because of a profile, but what I do is I'll use as like a tiebreaker.
Mhm.
So if we get down to like the final interviews and there's two candidates they really like, but one has a better personality match for the position, that may give them a nudge. So we'll do that. But then we'll look at a big issue with VAs is the internet connection.
Okay.
So a lot of times you could find VAs, especially if they're not properly vetted, where all of a sudden their internet's down and now they can't work.
Mm.
So I mean, that's annoying. You don't want that. So
Right.
we make everyone submit proof of their upload speeds, download speeds. We check their connection, make sure
Good.
that they have
Yeah.
good infrastructure where they are. So we'll go through that. We'll go through what kind of equipment they're working on, because obviously if you depend on roles, we place a lot of VAs for like video editing and things like that. You need to have the equipment to actually manage it. Because the last thing you need is a video editor, and it takes them 4 hours to upload a video you send them so they can edit it. So we'll look into all that stuff. And then my team, they'll narrow it down to the top 15 to 20 candidates, and then they'll do initial interviews. So they'll do one-on-one interviews with those candidates just to narrow it down even more. So after they do their one-on-one interviews with all those, they'll narrow it down to typically like between 6 to 8 candidates. And then what we do is then we'll send a spreadsheet to you, our client, that's
Okay.
going to have their name, a link to their resume, link to their DISC profile.
Oh wow.
We make all of them do a 1-minute video introduction, so you can kind of
Nice.
see the person, get to know who they are, their tonality, their, all that kind of stuff. We'll give a link to their, if they have a portfolio. So especially if they're going to be doing any kind of marketing, video editing, we'll have a link to their portfolio so you can see their past work. We'll do all that. And then that way you're able to kind of eliminate people there. And then we move them to the final interview. So once you tell us which candidates you want to interview, we'll bring them into the final interview. And then obviously then my team, we would all interview each candidate one-on-one until you choose the one you want.
Okay,
So
cool.
because of that vetting process, we're able to really make sure that we get you matched with the best one. If for whatever reason, again, hiring, they're still humans. So you're never, some are going to get through the cracks and it's not going to be the best fit. So then we also have a guaranteed replacement program. So
Nice.
within 90 days, if you don't think they're the right fit, and you'll know within 90 days, because we're also going to help monitor it as well. We'll help you form like a 30, 60, 90 plan so that you know what kind of benchmarks your VA should be hitting. If it doesn't work within that 90 days, we'll replace it free of charge.
Wow, that's great, Brian. I love that there's the accountability there on your part and the assistance to actually even set the 30, 60, 90 plan with the customer and involving the customer in the hiring process seems so like it's obvious, right? But I know a lot of VA
Yep.
companies don't do that.
They don't.
They just kind of assign somebody, and that's
Yep.
what I was getting to with that question. Like, if somebody's just assigned to me, how do I know that they're gonna be a
Yeah.
good fit?
So
But
because that's why we want to do all that work up front, because obviously, one thing that helped our business grow the way it has is the success our clients have been having with their VAs. So that generates more and more referrals coming into us. So that's why we really want to make sure that we're really involved and we are going to do everything possible to get you matched with the right VA the first time so that you don't have to go through the process again and then you don't have to start all over with a new VA. Now, does it happen? Obviously, yes. I mean, I've hired the wrong VA myself a couple of times where I had to get rid of people. So it's going to happen, but at least then you still have us to then help and get that person placed.
yeah, and that just makes great business sense to me. It seems like you're putting together a very good product, and you have this startup that should be taking off. And speaking of taking off, like where do you see your future going? Like in your real estate career or in this VA company? Like what are the next steps on the horizon for you?
So, I mean, again, Mary and I, so we both have huge visions. So I'm more the integrator, but I still have a mindset of a visionary. I want to, explode. But for real estate, I mean, obviously, we want to build our team big. We want a massive team that's going to sell 1,000 homes a year.
Wow.
We do got something coming up on the horizon that's going to be huge, that we should be announcing within probably the next month or so that I think is going to be massive for our business. That's just going to help us differentiate ourselves from anyone else in the market, especially in terms of a team, just because of the additional value we're going to be able to provide our agents. So that's going to be huge in getting us to where we want to go. And with Leverage Virtual, we're always changing, adding new things. Now, one of the things we're working on is we're building an ISA division
Okay.
within our company, because one thing we found, especially in the real estate world, not like a lot of people could use help with their database,
Mhm.
but they don't have a large enough database to warrant hiring someone full time.
Mhm.
So they may only need a VA for a week or a month to help call their database. So what we're doing is building out an in-house, not in-house here, like
Right,
in-house within
right.
our Filipino team, where they're going to be fully trained, ready to go. So like if you were to call me and say, hey, I really need help calling my database, we'll now have those VAs already on our staff that we just be like, all right, here's so-and-so for the next week. They're already fully, they know their scripts, they've been role played, like they
Nice.
do this on a full-time basis. And then we could then help other agents on a shorter term period.
I
So
like
for
that.
us, we have a database of 20,000 people in our real estate business. So we need people full-time
Mhm.
calling our database. But a lot of agents, if you have a couple hundred, you have 1,000 people in your database, you don't need a person 40 hours a week. You
Mhm.
just need someone temporary that could get through them all just to, again, keep them in the pipeline, because that's where most agents lose a huge chunk of
Oh,
business,
absolutely.
is not following up with those long-term nurtures.
Yeah, you get if you get somebody like 2 weeks, 4 times a year, that
Mm-hmm.
you could get your quarterly calls in,
Yep.
or even as somebody to help design those marketing emails, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a great idea, Brian. That more limited on-demand service. I like it.
Yep.
Speaking of what you're doing new, like what What new technologies or trends do you see in the, this industry that will have like a significant impact on how like you conduct business and how people
Well,
conduct business?
I mean, outside of the use of VAs,
Yeah. Well,
no, but
well,
to me, it's AI.
okay.
And if anyone, any listeners, like if you're not using AI now, like you are way behind. Like start get involved in it. Because it's another thing you could use to just help leverage so much time off your plate. So we use everything we do with our real estate business with Leverage Virtual. We look to be as streamlined as humanly possible because that's how you're able to keep everyone in their strength zones. So we leverage so much off the AI. Whether it's, for example, like we do trainings every week with our real estate team. There's times when Mary and I are busy, and then all of a sudden it's Thursday morning. We're like, oh shit, we didn't come up with a training for today. What are we going to do? You come up with a time. You could literally go into like Chat GPT and say, give me topics for teaching a training course on for sale by owners.
Oh
And it
wow.
will literally spit out topics to talk about on for sale by owners. So we use it not just for that, we'll use it for drip campaigns, for marketing stuff. We'll use it for listing descriptions, YouTube research. So Mary does a lot of YouTube for the real estate business. I do YouTube for Leverage Virtual. We'll use it to come up with scripts for the YouTube videos. So pretty much all that, like we leverage all that off the AI. Kind of like here where you have the Fireflies AI. I used to use a VA to, a VA would come into a lot of my meetings and they would take the meeting notes. Now I just have AI. So now they're in my meetings. So now whenever my meetings are over, I already have a transcription. So we leverage a ton off the AI. So I think that's going to have a massive impact on not just our business, but every business.
Yeah, I'm a believer in the AI. I use it heavily myself, so I definitely agree there that it's going to impact many industries, not only ours. So let's get a little more personal now. We've talked about business a lot. You mentioned that you have your wife Mary, you have the two girls. Tell me how you manage the real estate, the VA, and that home life. I'm assuming that having Mary as a partner 24 hours a day in all aspects is a benefit because then she can understand and you both understand when you need to work, when you need to be with family.
See,
What kind of challenges does that present?
so this, I mean, now we have it dialed in now, but it always wasn't that way. So when I first started working, like not even when I was working with her, when I was still like in insurance and she was getting into real estate, she was busy as hell. And I wouldn't understand it because again, I wasn't in
Okay.
that field yet. I wasn't in business yet. So we go on vacation. She's on her phone nonstop, and I'm
Mm.
like, dude, this is insane. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is like I remember we were in Disney one time. I thought we were gonna get divorced. Like, because literally every time I turned around, she's dipping off somewhere on a phone. And that's one of the main reasons when I joined her. One of the first things I wanted to do was figure out how to leverage that stuff off her plate. And now we have it so dialed in to where, again, because of the leverage through not just agents, Jen, our VA staff, technology, we have it so that leverage so dialed in to where Mary and I only do the things that are actually going to drive revenue to the business. So we're involved in none of the actual day-to-day stuff. So that helps, like, when Mary and I go away, we went in September, we went to Mexico for 8 days with our kids and literally did not have to do anything with the business. I
Wow.
mean, and obviously, there's times in the morning we wake up before the girls, we'll have a cup of coffee, we'll go on and just, we'll check in with
Hmm.
Jen, I'll check in with my VAs, we'll do stuff like that. But once the kids are awake, we literally did not do a thing of work the rest of the day.
Nice.
And then where most business owners, when they come back that following Monday, come back to dreading life because they know they're coming back to 800 tasks.
Yeah,
We come back just like it's any other Monday
that's awesome.
because of how well our business runs when we're not there actually being the ones running it. So that is, I mean, it's been huge. So now to the point now where Mary and I both I coach my older daughter's soccer team. So obviously I'm there multiple times a week coaching. Every weekend, Mary's at every game. Our other daughter's in competitive cheer. We're at every competition.
Wow.
Where it wasn't like that before I was in Mary's business and before I really kind of organized it all. I mean, I think Ava's first season of travel soccer, I think Mary might have came to one or two games because
Mm,
every weekend she had appointments. So
right.
she was never able to be there. Now we have it so dialed in to where now she never misses a game.
And you're doing a high level of business. The customers are getting service correctly, and you're enjoying your family. It seems like you really developed a system that works.
And that's one of the biggest things is the customers being serviced because Mary, the one of the first things that falls off when a business owner gets too busy, the first thing that falls is your customer service
Hmm.
because you cannot provide the same level of service when you have so many things going on. And that's when all of a sudden every transaction becomes a fire because
Right.
you missed something. You missed a deadline. Now you're trying to make up for it. But when you have a team, and this is what a lot of agents, there's a lot of agents out there who just, are diehard solo that don't believe anyone else can do a job as good as they can,
Hmm.
which is false because no one is perfect in every aspect of everything. I mean, so there are VAs can do stuff way better than we can. So when you actually have the right people in place, your business is going to benefit because now your customers are happy because they don't necessarily, if they're calling to check up on, a home inspection repair, like something random, like they don't need Mary necessarily
Right.
being the one to call. They're fine with Jen calling or, a VA giving an update. All they care about is getting an update. But the problem is if Mary's too busy and that person reaches out to Mary, and then Mary doesn't get back to it. And then all of a sudden she has 100 more text messages and emails. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden she remembers at 3 o'clock in the morning, she wakes up in the middle of the night saying, oh shit, I never called Sally back. Like, and then that's when it becomes an issue. But when you have that leverage, they're always getting communicated with.
That's great. So Brian, this is the Hungry Realtor podcast, and I don't know if I've ever told you how I came up with that name, the Hungry Realtor, or at Hungry Realtor. It's because I love food. I also feel like I'm driven in business, so hungry kind of has a dual meaning there. So I have to ask everybody, like, what is your favorite restaurant or meal? What's your go-to when you really want something good?
First, I love the name.
Thank you.
It is awesome. I love both aspects of it, the food and the hunger of being, a business person. I got a couple. So, one, it depends. If it's family oriented and we want to go somewhere with the kids, because a lot of times we'll do that. It'll just be like a random Tuesday night where like we don't feel like cooking. Then we hit PJ Willihan's. That's a go-to. We can bring the
Nice.
kids. They can be loud. It doesn't matter, because we love that kind of bar and grill atmosphere. So that's one of our go-tos if we're going with the kids, and our kids love it. Because they have stuff there that anyone can
Yeah.
eat. They sell mac and cheese for like craft mac and cheese for like $10. My kids have it home, but some reason they like it there more. So
My
which
daughter
is
does the
fine by
same
me
thing.
because I
Yep.
can go enjoy a few beers while they eat that rip off craft mac and cheese. So, but then outside of that, if it's just Mary and I, one spot that we absolutely love that is special to us is Max's Seafood in Gloucester City.
Okay.
Incredible restaurant. Been around for like 100 years. The place is it's absolutely amazing. That's one that Mary and I hit a lot. If like on the special case, because now we're farther away. Our first house was actually in Gloucester City, so
I
that's when we
remember.
started really going there quite a bit. But they have an amazing bar. Their food is absolutely outstanding. So that's one. Mary and I have spent anniversaries there, birthdays.
Nice.
If it's summertime and we need the atmosphere, our favorite there is Beach Creek down in Wildwood
Okay.
because that's when Mary grew up down in North Wildwood. So her family still lives there. So a lot of times that gives us the opportunity we could just drop the kids off at her parents' house and Mary and I could go out to Beach Creek, which is right on the beach. You sit outside, it's on the bay. I mean, you sit outside, they always have live music, awesome atmosphere. That's our go-to for that one.
Cool.
So if
So
you're ever down that area, check out Beach Creek.
yeah, I
It's amazing.
will. We get down to the beach probably once or twice in the summer. We're more mountains people, so we go the other way. We
Yeah.
go west, while everyone else goes down the shore. But we,
I
my,
love the mountains in the summertime.
me
It's
too.
incredible.
My wife likes the beach though, so and the kid, my daughter and my youngest son love it because they love to swim and
Yeah.
build the stuff
I'm
for the
like,
castle.
I like the atmosphere of it, but I'm not one who could just sit. Like Mary could sit on the beach all day long. She could like
Okay.
read a book and just like I can't.
Mhm.
I'm just all the time. Like Mary, like she loves it now that our kids are older because I could go play with them and I
Nice.
don't bother her. But like Mary, like if it's just me and her at the beach, like it drives her insane because I can't sit still. Like
Yep. It was the same with me and my wife. I actually would just leave her there and go on the boardwalk and just
That's what I'll
like I
do.
I'll go to the arcade or go play.
Yep.
I'll shoot the basketball or whatever I'm missing, waste $20.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'd even drive to the casino. Like if we would go to the beach in Ventnor, and then
Yeah.
I'd leave her there and I'd go to AC for a little bit.
That's awesome. That's one I would do that. I would do that.
All right, so we're in the Philadelphia area, so I have to ask you too, like, where is your favorite cheesesteak?
Oh, I mean, for me, I mean, locally, it's got to be Donkeys.
Nice.
You have the one in Camden, but then there's one in Medford. You have Donkeys two over there. That's easy for us to get to. But there's one spot that I haven't tried yet that I absolutely have to, that everyone raves about and says it is by far the best cheesesteaks, is Lillo's Tomato Pie.
Oh, interesting.
It's in Hainsport. Everyone said, like, actually they had David Portnoy from Barstool was there.
Oh yeah.
Apparently the place just, they sell out every day. Like, it's literally like, I follow them on Facebook, and like every day it's like, oh, sorry, we're out of cheesesteaks for the rest of the day.
Wow.
Like, so apparently it's no joke. I
All
haven't tried
right.
them yet. I have to. That's one that's on my list of things to try coming up here soon.
All right, Brian. Here's my goal. I want to have a cheesesteak at that place with you, and we're gonna feature it on my other podcast called Yo Eat This. So you can be a
Perfect.
dual guest, and then
Yeah, let's do it.
we'll get that on the schedule. Brian, again, we have to wrap up. We've been talking for almost an hour now. I want to thank you so much. Let the people know where they can find you and Leverage Virtual.
All right. So the easiest is go to leveragevirtual.com. So if you go to leveragevirtual.com, if you need to talk about VAs, you can book a call right on there, and they'll just get you right on my calendar. So either there or just Brian at leveragevirtual.com.
Awesome. And everybody knows that they can follow at Hungry Realtor on all the social medias on YouTube. Make sure that to subscribe on Spotify so you don't miss an episode of the at Hungry Realtor podcast. Thanks. Have a great day.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
That was another episode of the Hungry Realtor podcast with Mike Severns at Hungry Realtor. Please like, subscribe, and follow for more great episodes.